Blessings, acknowledging God, thanking God, praising God. There's a lot of details behind that injunction. Check it out. And now we are going to continue with what we wanted to talk about today. So we today are going to be discussing blessings, primarily, actually probably exclusively blessings on food. And I want to speak about the practical law. I want to speak, of course, about the spiritual dimension to that. Now, many of you might think, oh, I know it all. And some of you might think, I don't know any of it. And I'm sort of aiming for everyone. I'm going to be saying things that are very foundational, very basic. And I'm sure I'm also bringing information that even the most savvy of you might not know. So hopefully everyone's going to gain. And after we review all the practical, we'll go into the spiritual behind it, the significance of saying the blessings. All day we eat, that's for sure. So all day we have the opportunity to bless God, to remember him, and to ask his permission before using items that are his. The blessing, the word blessing actually in Hebrew means to draw down, because every blessing draws more godliness into this world. There are blessings on everything. There's blessings on lightning, on thunder, on a rainbow, on good news, everything there's blessings. We're going to focus on food. And again, I'm going to review for some, teach for others, concepts of all the myriads of details of blessings on food, and then we'll speak about the spirituality. If this is new for you, just grab the basics. Look to take away the most foundational ideas. If you are a pro, look for what you don't know yet. And hopefully everyone will find something to learn here. First of all, obviously foundation. And at any point, feel free to interrupt me with your questions, because this is very practical and I want to make sure you understand it. This is just practical Jewish living. If a food's not kosher, don't make a bracha on it. Bracha is a Hebrew word for a blessing. We do not bless before we eat food that's not kosher, because God doesn't allow you to eat this food. So it'd be like a mockery to make a blessing thanking God for eating something that's forbidden that he doesn't want you to eat. On all kosher foods, make blessings. And since eating is such a common activity, we have many, many opportunities to bring God into our life in a very simple, easy way. We make blessings before food, no matter how small the amount of food we're eating. If you taste when you cook, I don't know if you do that, but if you even just are tasting when you're cooking, before the taste, you have to make the blessing. If you're a nibbler, a grazer, you just like, eat a little, eat a little, eat a little. If you're eating even a little bit, we need to make a blessing. If you're not sure if you said a blessing or not, don't repeat it, because we're very careful about saying God's name. And in a blessing, we refer to God by name. And therefore, if you know you didn't say it, of course, then you should say the blessing, as we'll discuss. But if you like, maybe I said it, maybe I didn't say it, I don't know, I'm ADD, I don't remember, then don't repeat it. It'd be worse, because it'd be worse to take God's name in vain. That's in general the rule in all those situations, not only for blessings on food and for blessings, for prayers, for anything like that, rabbinic, where we're saying God's name. If we're not sure, we don't repeat, because we have to be careful not to say God's name in vain. So getting practical, when you're saying a blessing, you hold the food or the utensil, if the food is on a fork or a spoon. So you hold that utensil or you hold the food directly. It's a potato chip, you're holding the food. It's a piece of chicken, you're holding the fork that has the food on it. In your right hand, if you're a lefty, hold it in your left hand. If you don't do it and the food's in front of you, that's okay. But the best thing is, again, to hold the food ideally in your right hand, unless you're lefty, in your left hand, and you make the blessing. Now, if you're in the middle of eating and you suddenly realize, I forgot to make the blessing, I forgot to say the blessing, what do? Well, if you can take the food out of your mouth, if you can take it out, and it wouldn't be like repulsive, like a candy, a sucking candy, you could just spit it out onto a napkin or something, and you put it back in your mouth. That's what you do. Take it out, make the blessing, put it back in. If you're in the middle of chewing a piece of chicken and you realize you didn't make the blessing, you might not want to spit that piece of chicken onto a napkin. It might be like really disgusting to you. So then what you should do is push it like with your tongue to the side of your mouth, and then with the food in the side of your mouth, say the blessing. That's if you're at food that you suddenly said, oops, I forgot I didn't make the blessing. If you're in the middle of drinking and you suddenly realize you didn't make the blessing, well, what do? So if you have more, spit it out, You're not going to drink it again. I mean, we live in 21st century America. We're not going to drink it again. Spit it out, make a blessing, and drink the rest. If you don't have any more, this is it. This is all that's left. We're drinking in the middle of drinking orange juice. The bottle is empty. There's nothing more. You're not drinking anything more. You're not home that you'll just finish it off with nothing left. What do? Swallow what's in your mouth because your glass is empty, but you never made the blessing on that orange juice. So what do? If you spit it out, we will find that very repulsive nowadays. We're not going to drink it again. You can't really put a drink to the side of your mouth. It doesn't work that way. So what do? So you swallow. There's nothing left in your glass, and then you make the blessing. So again, because especially if blessings are new to you, it is easy to forget and then be like, oh, I know, I'm not sure, pass. I know I forgot. So if you know you forgot and it's food and you can spit it out, make the blessing, put it back in. It's food and you can't spit it out, put it to the side of your mouth, make the blessing, and keep chewing. If it's drinking, we're not going to spit it out and drink it again. So if I'm in the middle of drinking my orange juice, there is no more orange juice. I am not home. There's no more drinks around me. Spit it out, make the blessing, drink the rest of the glass. There's nothing left in the glass. Swallow. You have no more to drink. But right now, even though you finished drinking, you're making a blessing for that drink you just had because you still want to acknowledge God and thank God and bless God and show gratitude to God for the great orange juice you just drank without remembering to thank him. In that very unusual situation, it's really unusual to make a blessing when you're not eating it or drinking anything afterwards. Don't make an after blessing unless the drink happened to be wine, and then we would still make the after blessing. But if it was orange juice or apple juice or anything like that, we will not make an after blessing if you just sort of after you ate made the blessing. Once you say a blessing, a lot of people I know have a hard time with this. I've noticed once you say the blessing, we don't talk until we eat and swallow that first bite or first sip. You make the blessing and then you don't say anything until you eat and swallow or drink and swallow that first bite, that first sip. If you spoke and it was about the food, it was something needed to be said, like you made the blessing on bread and then you realize you don't have any salt. And we dip our bread in salt and you're looking around and you're gesturing and nobody knows your hand language and nobody's getting what you're talking about. So you'd be allowed to say, it's not ideal, but we're salt. It's about the food. You can't eat the food without the salt. But otherwise, if it's not such a situation, then you have to say the blessing over again. It doesn't work to speak and then say, and again, to make a blessing, speak and then eat the food did not work. The speaking interrupted your blessing. The blessing didn't count. And you need to say the blessing again. No interruptions and eat. All right. I just went through a lot. Anyone has any questions?
Yes, I have a question. When you said we don't say blessing on non-kosher food.
Yes.
Let's say if I eat something at my son's house, let's say, and they are like not 100% kosher. The kitchen is not kosher. Although they even have different parts for dairy and meat, but so if I eat kosher food at their house, should I say blessing? The plates are not kosher. Most often it's just disposable plates, but
how is the food not kosher?
Kitchen is not kosher, not food.
And it was cooked. So you're talking about, like, I'm saying something very simple. They took a kosher frozen hamburger and they put it in a not kosher pot and cooked it.
That's usually something I don't eat, but let's say turkey or a piece of meat, my daughter-in-law would cover with 2 layers of foil because so she wants us to eat it and put it in their oven. Then
she took kosher turkey, she double wrapped it with 2 layers of foil, and she takes it out. The food is kosher because it was double wrapped.
This is what I am saying.
So it's kosher.
Or the salad, but it's there if it's on their plate.
Don't eat it on their plate.
No. But if salad is made and put in their plate.
In other words, this is what I'm feeling, Rachel. If it's not kosher, don't eat it. If it's kosher, like whatever, you eat kosher. If it's not kosher, you don't eat it. If it's kosher, you make a blessing on it. So if you're in a situation of saying, I know this isn't kosher, should I make a blessing? you shouldn't make a blessing, and you shouldn't eat the food. And then if it gets sticky, you can be the gracious mother-in-law and you offer to bring foods that you know are going to be problematic. So she can take her kosher frozen turkey, double wrap it, you know it's 100% kosher, use disposable cutlery, which is really hard with a turkey. Maybe you should bring your own knife, but somehow put it on a paper plate. You bring pretty paper plates and pretty disposables and your knife that you watch very carefully, and you eat her kosher turkey and make her feel good. And you're nice and you bring all the side dishes on a new, disposable tablecloth, and everything's so easy because we're just going to throw it all away and we're going to have a wonderful meal. And I don't even have to bother. I mean, you have to, do it with tact so the person doesn't feel offended. They wouldn't feel offended. But if you feel like, I think what you're saying was, let's say it's a salad, but it was cut up with a not kosher knife, a not kosher cutting board, and a not kosher bowl, and all these things. You shouldn't be eating it.
Okay, got it. So I will bring my knives. At least we will be able to eat
the turkey.
And I will bring some salads too.
Right. And just if you're bringing your knife, carefully watch it so it doesn't end up getting not kosher, because there's some hot not kosher food around there or something else that will mess up your knife. Like someone else just said, grabs a knife and cuts something else, and you're like, there went that knife. So got to be careful. It's hard. I mean, with family, we want to be careful, we want to be respectful, we want to eat together, and of course you could just easily host. But if the other people want to host, it's a bit of a dance. But definitely, I'm sure we've all been in situations where you try to do what you can do, obviously, but definitely the bottom line shouldn't be, so I eat something that's not kosher. You should be eating kosher. You should be able to make the blessings, but you have to think a lot in advance. I remember Chava, who joined us now, she was by a friend, I think it was for Thanksgiving, and not kosher house, and managed to do what she needed to do, cook, make a meal, that food she could eat, takes a lot of effort, but there is a tremendous value in family being together and friends being together and eating together and people eating kosher. Anyone else? Any other questions? Because I did say a lot of laws.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yes.
Somebody said that, let's say I started eating and I'm not sure if I said the blessing, and I understand that you're saying if you're not sure, it's better not to say God's name in vain.
Exactly.
What about the technique walking out of the house, going to the sidewalk, returning back, and then saying the brucha? If I'm not sure.
If you're not sure, because you're saying then you would have a need to make a new one.
Because I still want to continue eating whatever I was eating, but now I don't know if you know what I mean. So
I understand what you mean. You see, the problem is, again, you're deliberately creating a situation to be allowed to say a blessing. But if you knew you had said the blessing, you wouldn't create that situation because you don't want to unnecessarily say God's name. So more if you had like a natural need to use the restroom, and then you use the restroom, well then, unless you're in the middle of a meal with bread, to continue eating, you do have an obligation to say a blessing again. So that could work, because then it's not, you know what I'm saying? That's truly the law, but not like you're creating a scenario where I'll walk outside and walk back inside. You're not supposed to do that in the middle of the meal, because you're not supposed to necessarily say blessings. But if you have a need to use a restroom, you're not supposed to be eating. So, therefore it would work better.
You were saying if I'm in the middle of the meal, I'm going to the bathroom. When I come back, I do have obligation to repeat the brucha.
You do, unless it's bread, you have that obligation.
So
if you eat and walk into a bathroom, you were in the middle of eating, then you walked into a bathroom. If you want to continue eating, you have to say the blessing over for every blessing besides on bread. Bread, we wash our hands ritually again, but we don't make a blessing again. But for anything else, you do have to say a new blessing, because the bathroom interrupted the meal. Just like I said before, if you make a blessing and then you speak, it doesn't work. Now you got to make a new blessing because there was an interruption between the blessing and the food. If you go to the washroom, there was an interruption. So therefore you need to make a new blessing.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Cyril, yeah, that's very interesting. I didn't know that also. And the fact that we already ate food, and we didn't say after blessing or before going to washroom, should we say after blessing?
Are you done your meal or are you in the middle of
No.
eating still?
Not done.
You're still going to be eating.
I still going to be eating.
No, you don't say an after blessing, because again, the idea is a blessing is really, it's God's name. A blessing is significant. Now, of course, we say blessings all day long, and we're supposed to say blessings all day long. And the sages say a person should try to say 100 blessings a day. That's actually based on a verse. So God wants us to say his name all day long, but appropriately within the format where it's supposed to be. So if you're in the middle of a meal and you make an after blessing and then you continue, and then you make a new blessing and eat again, no, that was wrong. You wasted God's name. Why did you make that after blessing? So you don't make the after blessing. But because you went to the washroom, you interrupted the meal. So when you come back, you wash your hands, not in the bathroom, just, not ritually, just wash your hands. And then you make a blessing again and continue your meal. Taking what Chava's saying in a different situation. Let's say you, unfortunately, I'm not so good at this because I just nibble all day long, which is a very unhealthy habit for many reasons. But let's say you ate, you made a blessing, you're doing everything right. You made a blessing, you ate, you made an after blessing, and 2 minutes later, you made a new blessing and you ate, and then you finished, you made an after blessing. And no, that's wrong. You're not supposed to eat like that. God doesn't want you to eat like that. He wants you to make a blessing and eat and finish eating and make an after blessing and be done. Not be done forever, but at least be done long enough that it doesn't seem like, what? If you're planning on continuing eating, what did you take my name in vain for? Why'd you make that after blessing? So that's in general supposed to be our perspective, how God wants us to eat. He wants us to sit down. He wants us to focus on the food. He wants us to eat, praising him and thanking him before and after, and then we move on. We're done.